Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from, and welcome to this APM InFocus webinar to support the September 2024 exams. My name is Hazel McLucas and I work as an Education Partners Support Manager at ACCA. As the title of today's webinar suggests, Examiners Report Unlocked, our session today is designed to support you with the insights from the latest examiner reports of Advanced Performance Management. Our expert tutor, Tze Kang has joined us to help you with the upcoming exam preparation. During the session, he'll take you through the technical examples from previous exams and share practical advice for tackling the September exams. He will also talk to you about the strategies which you should adopt to avoid common pitfalls and improve your exam performance. And towards the end, we will have a live Q&A as well. So before I hand over to Tze, I'd just like to cover a few quick housekeeping items. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see there's a number of icons that you can select. There's a help icon that provides resources and information to help you resolve any technical issues that you might experience. There's also an icon for both slides and media player, and you'll need to see both of these during the webinar, so make sure that you select them and you can see them on your screen. There's an attendee chat function that you can engage with fellow webinar attendees. However, please do not share any of your personal details in that chat. And there's a resource list, which is an icon that looks like a file symbol. And if you click on this, you'll be able to access resources relevant to today's webinars, including some direct links. You can rearrange your screen to suit and resize the windows if you need to. And at any point, if you can't hear what we're saying or see any of the visuals, then please refresh your browser. Registering for this webinar means that you'll be sent an email tomorrow with details of how you can listen to it again. So don't worry if you miss something or you have any technical issues, you'll be able to access the recording. I'm going to hand over to Tze in a moment, and I will be back with you towards the end of the session. But if you'd like to ask ACCA or Tze a question, then please post them in the Q&A section. Please note we can't guarantee responding to everyone directly, either verbally or in the chat, but we do hope that the questions that we share will be helpful to everyone on today's webinar. So I'll pass over to Tze.
Thank you, Hazel. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you who are now in this webinar. My name is Tze Kang, an expert tutor for APM. You may have seen a couple of the video on the ACCA YouTube channels about me, not only for APM, but also on a few other subjects, which I will introduce about my background. And feel free to drop me any questions that you have in your mind while listening to the whole of the webinar. And I will be happy to take on as many questions as I could to clear your air and clear your doubts, so that at the end of this webinar, I hope every one of you would have gained something new to give yourself some kind of excitement to try something new that hopefully will bring some changes, especially positive changes towards your exam performance in September 2024 session. That's a little bit about me. I'm from Malaysia, by the way, and I'm a fellow member of ACCA as well as the member of ICAEW. I've been teaching 4 of these ACCA papers, PM, FM, AFM, and APM for more than 20 years in several parts of the countries, mainly in Asia and also once in Uganda. And currently, I'm leading one of the professional accountancy center with one of the Australian-based university in Malaysia. And at the same time, I'm also teaching for one of the institutions in Vietnam. So that's about me. Well, guys, while listening, it would be great if you can just drop into the attendee chat telling me where you're from. So at least I know that the areas that we can cover on the webinar that is benefiting the students from as many parts of the places as possible for preparing yourself towards the APM examination. Well, I can see there are quite an overwhelming response from the attendee chat already, and I can see some of the concern questions that some of you already have started putting in already, and I can see there are quite a few of the common pain points, particularly marginal failure on this particular exam in the previous attempt. So I definitely will spare some time in the later moment to highlight some of the suggestions and tips for you. At least you can feel some kind of changes and trying something different so that you can see some possibility of pushing yourself towards hopefully touching the passing line itself. So that is all about the plans over here. Well, I can see we have students from South Africa, and we also have Malaysia as usual. And well, I can see that quite a number of the one from the UK and the one from Ireland, and we have from Poland and Cambodia, Vietnam. So welcome all, welcome all. So let's get started off and roll out to this webinar. In this session, I will be highlighting the following key areas which would give you some of the eye-opening experiences, particularly, I'm pretty sure, examiner's report. It is not something that is totally new to all of us. I'm quite sure on that. However, I would like to share with you from a student's perspective, what do you see? What do you learn from examiner report as comparing to from a tutor viewpoint? So what do we gain? How do we see the insights from examiner report? Now, try to stand from different shoes. You definitely will gain different insight and you will discover something different from examiner reports, which I'm very sure you definitely would experience some new discovery after hearing what I'm going to tell you in a moment. At the same time, I'm going to connect whatever you see in the examiner report to that particular most recent exam sitting of the exam questions. And I'm going to show you how exactly the examiner report will help you to improve your quality in understanding the questions, the quality in picking up the clue, more importantly, the quality in producing your answer to impress the marker and maximizing the chances of gaining as many marks as you could in your answer. So that is exactly what's the whole ideas on these demonstrations in the moment. At the same time, I also will highlight to you what are the advices, suggestions for you in preparing yourself for the September exam. From now until the exam, you have about what? Less than 3 weeks time to go. It is particularly crucial about what are the right things to do in the next 3 remaining weeks. That would directly affecting the chances and the odds of getting through the exam in September sitting. And obviously not to forget about highlighting and drawing attention, what are the common pitfalls that students may have normally demonstrated and committed in the exam, and you should try to rehearse, making sure those are the pitfalls you want to get rid of as much as you could so that you can improve your exam performances. And then guys, at the end of the sessions, I will spend about 10 to 15 minutes to take on your questions, as many as I could over here. So, the first things before I turn on to the content of the examiner report, you may just want to respond to my first questions in this attendee chat. For those of you who have experience or who have built up the habit of reading examiner reports before every sitting of the exam, can you put a Y in the attendee chat? If you haven't got a habit of reading through the examiner report before going for the exam, you can put an N in the attendee chat. So guys, there's no right, there's no wrong. I just want to know about your habit of learning and preparing towards your examination. So Y for yes, N for no. So let's take a look at how many of us actually do have the habit of reading through the examiner's report prior the exam. Well, I can see from some of the response over here, more than half of us do have the habit, or now I can see more of the response by saying, no, not really. Okay, good. Thank you very much for all your response. The more you respond to my questions, the better I will understand what exactly you've been doing, and that exactly will allow me to comment. Are you doing the right things, guys? If not, then please follow the advice that I'm going to share with you towards the second half of this webinar. Okay? Now, for those of you who have experience and habit of reading the examiner reports before the exam, now this question is for those of you who really spend time on the examiner report. Here is my second question. How long, on average, do you spend in reading one examiner report, one complete report of one exam sitting? How long do you spend? Well, you can just type in minutes, or you can type in hours, or you can put in days. So as long as you can see some of the response, that will allow me to understand even further to what extent examiner report would contribute to your chances of success in exam. Okay, so I can start seeing some response coming in. How long did you spend in reading through one exam sitting of the examiner report? Okay, very, very good. Yep, I can start seeing responses coming in. Very, very good. Thank you very much. Okay, great. So if I were to wrap up most of the feedbacks from the attendee chat, I could take it as from 30 minutes to 1.5 hours. That is the standard durations of a student spending reading one examiner report. Okay, wonderful. Guys, you want to know? Me as the tutor who have been teaching APM for more than 20 years, you want to know how long do I spend in reading one examiner report to prepare my job of teaching and coaching the students? I spend half a day. That is at least 3 to 4 hours of work for me in reading one examiner report. Guys, do you see the difference between the habits of your end and my end? Then you will ask me, TK, what exactly that you spend so much of time in the examiner report? I'm telling you, in APM, as everyone knows, with the pass rates published, it definitely serves to be one of the challenging options paper in strategic professional level of exam. I'm pretty sure every one of you who is listening would definitely agree with me. Am I right to say so? In order for you to prepare well in dealing with such a challenging papers, don't you think so? It is utmost important to really have a good understanding about what the examining team are looking for. What exactly the expectations from the examining team wanting to see, particularly from the marker perspective. What exactly are the quality of answer they expect to get from the script of the students in order to impress the marker so that telling the marker, I deserve a pass. Well, you need to know all these answers. And guys, these answers are not from me, expert tutor, not from your tutor, but it is from the people who design these exam papers. It is from the team who assess your work. They are the examining team. And I'm telling you, reading examiner report indeed, it's definitely a key contributing factor to enhance and maximizes your chances of passing this exam in APM. And guys, I always believe in one thing, especially something that you have learned in APM, what we call as total quality management philosophy, TQM philosophy. What have we learned from TQM, guys? TQM taught us always aim for 0 defects. TQM also taught us how to get things right at the first attempt. In other words, the TQM is telling us something. Please understand what the expectation is all about and just give what is being expected. And to me, to really understand what examining team, what markers are looking for in APM to pass you, it is these answers that is found from the examiner report. I have been hearing a lot of students, including all of us who are listening, particularly those of you who had experience in attempting this exam paper, unfortunately, didn't get through. We always hear a lot of students saying, I have no idea what examining team wanting. I have no idea what exactly the requirement is asking for. Hey guys, if you want to know the answer of this, it is from this document, the examiner report. And I'm somebody who always believe in when you want to do something, please do it right and please do it well. In other words, I'm focusing on quality of work rather than quantity. If you really spend a good quality of time in reading one examiner report, I'm telling you, the insight, the discovery, the advice that you would have gotten from one sitting of examiner report is anytime better as comparing to you would have just scanned through on the surface, reading through a couple of sittings of examiner report, yet you have just not realizing how wonderful, how useful the inside clues are all about, that hiding and contained in the rest of the part in the examiner report. So in order to prove what I said to you is true, I'm going to take you through, holding your hand, take a look at certain part of the examiner report pertaining to March and June 2024 exam sitting. From there, I will then show you how exactly it helped me to better understand that particular exam questions in that exam sitting. That will help me to have a better idea what exactly are the answer I'm supposed to produce. Okay, here is the first requirement relating to the first questions from March-June 2024 exam sitting of APM, vetted. Well, given the limitations of the time, I will be more focused onto discussing what am I supposed to pick it up? What do I get benefited by reading this part of the content from the examiner report pertaining to part 1 of questions 1, that is asking something on performance dashboard. As you may know, every questions 1 in APM, it's always asking for a report that is attention to somebody that is above us. CEO is obviously the most common person. The first response that you have to include in your report in these questions, it's pertaining to matters about performance dashboard. But what do you have to say about performance dashboard? I have no idea. And you definitely would know, TK, to know exactly what we have to respond in part 1, we have to spend some time to read through the exhibit because that is where the embedded requirement is at. If you already know this, well done for you. Good job. That is exactly the style of the questions in every of the questions of APM. Not only questions 1, but right from questions 1 to questions 3. It will be in this pattern. Last but not least, without forgetting, looking at the criteria of the professional skills that they expect to see in the answer of the student in order to gain the 10 marks over here. Well, if you take a look at what examiner have said about these whole questions in general, now I'm not here to hold your hand to read through word by word for you. Rather, I'm going to tell you what usually I discover in examiner report. Take questions 1 for instance. It normally will highlight the background story of the questions, just like the first paragraph. Now, let me ask you these questions, guys. Why do you think examining team spend time and effort to narrate the background, to tell you about the performance issues in this paragraph, which is found in the storyline? Why is that examiner report need to tell you all this? Have you got any clue? To me, if you may aware, whenever the question is asking for a report, as you may know, other than listing out some of the typical format, who are you writing to? Who are you? What is a subtitle? What is a subject matter? And then when you start your answering for report, you are advised to come with introduction, telling the reader what exactly this report is to be. Have you got a clue how to write an introduction of the report? But if you refer and learn out from the model answer, the answers usually will just say, the report is mainly to cover, but that is where it starts listing out, or in a way, they are just repeating requirement 1, requirement 2, requirement 3. Well, I didn't say that is not a good idea. I didn't say that is wrong, obviously. But guys, you can do a better job. If you remember, in workplace, why would people want to write a report to send to the superior? It definitely would tell the superior that there is something valuable in the report that worth for them to spend the time to read what is in your report. So therefore, to catch the eyesight of the reader, I would suggest you, when you write the introductions of the report, try to connect the task, the requirements that is asked in these questions to, number one, you may want to link it up to the objectives of the organizations. Number two, you may want to link it up to some issues or incidents or some of the matters of concern among the senior management of the firm. Try to observe, try to take a look at every questions in all the past exam sitting, including the current one. You will notice every questions of APM, especially in the first exhibit, would have told you there are something happening. There are some kind of issue. There was some kind of incidents, particularly those issues are not a good one. Well, that is why we need you to come in to share with me your idea, to give me your solutions. That is exactly the cream of the mindsets. How do you groom your answer in APM? That is why we always say, many students tend to just copy and paste whatever the exhibit gives and put it into the answer. Or some students, they will just copy or memorize whatever they learn from the book and just chuck it in to the answer. Ask yourself, is that the kind of answer that the reader of the report wanting to see? Are you giving me solution to deal with, to settle out, to sort out all these issues? If you're not, then you got to ask yourself, how good is the quality of your answer? How high is the mark you can gain if you write your answer in this manner? That is why telling you the issue of the company, it's definitely a clue for you to form, to craft your introduction in the report. You can always start your introductions on the questions one line. The purpose of the report is to address the issue pertaining to blah, 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 via an evaluation or by evaluating the following task that is being listed out in the requirement. So that is how you let the reader know when I'm addressing all the requirement, I am tackling the issue that mentioned in the questions. That is one of the good exam technique that you may want to consider in showing and impress the marker in your introduction. That if you go further down, these particular examiner report start breaking up the requirement that you saw a moment ago. It is just a short sentence of 2 words, performance dashboard. What do you know about performance dashboard? What do you have to say about performance dashboard? We have no idea until you read the exhibit. Remember, this is what we say. When you come to the examiner report, it gave you a confirmed answer. When you read the exhibit, when you attempt to take up the hidden exhibit, have you got it right? Did you manage to pick up the hidden, the embedded requirement correctly? How do you check it out? Some of us will say, well, let's look at the model answer. Yeah, I agree, but let's not forget about this. Model answer usually display the end result, the outcome of everything. But the one that really help you to improve your thinking process, your planning process, your ability to form and craft your written answer is not from the model answer. All these guidance, all these highlights and tips are from the examiner report that is highlighting the process of the work. If you want to see the outcome, look at the model answer. But to me, without emphasizing on processes, it is pointless to spend a lot of time in learning on just the outcome or the output. So for those of you who have been spending a lot of time in just checking through, reading through the model answer, maybe you want to change your strategy. Rather than spending so much of time in reading the model answer, I'd rather you spend your time reading examiner report. That is where it tells you the way to do things in a more effective manner. So this is basically a typical evidence of showing you what exactly are the full listing of the requirement after reading the exhibit properly. So this is how you can make use of it as a checklist. Then, after telling the students from the examiner report generally what the questions is asking, now here comes the feedback from the marking team by telling you generally how are students perform in general? Well, I am not so keen to tell you what students are doing well, but I am more keen to draw your attention what students could have done better. So these are generally the rooms for your improvements. Now, I always tell the students, whenever exam report highlight there are certain weaknesses, it is very likely that particular weakness are a very common weaknesses that found in many students who are doing the same examination. So keep an eye on this because very likely this is also your weaknesses too. Take for example, most students until today, they still have this kind of problem of producing an underdeveloped answer. Now, I know some of us is going to ask me these questions. TK, what do you mean by underdeveloped answer? Well, to me, this is something about your communication skills. When I ask you something, when I ask you for your advice, when I am looking forward to hear your solution, you are not just going to tell me, TK, please do this. That is not a fully developed answer. Instead, you should tell me, TK, you do this because you do this. However, so I want to hear a further elaboration to justify why are you saying this. A lot of students in APM overlook or ignore or didn't even realize the need to justify it. Okay, so well, you like it or not, whether you are running out of time, you've got to justify. You've got to make sure, complete your entire articulation, because that is the key component to get 1 mark from the marking team. A not fully developed answer has a chance of getting 0 marks. So if you tell me your time is running out, then let's tackle about time management in the moment. Well, if you manage your time well, that is the kind of issue that shouldn't be appearing during the examination. Well, generally over the last couple of years, with the professional skills introduced into the APM and so many of the strategic professional exam, I would say professional skills is among all that many students generally are doing quite all right. Not up to the extent of excellence, but quite all right. Take, for example, communication skills is one of the marks that you will earn the most, particularly in questions 1. But there are still room for improvements for some other skills, such as analysis and evaluation, commercial acumen, skepticism. These are the areas of the professional skills you would still have room for improvement, apart from communication. Other than the general comment and feedback, here are the specific ones that tells you what exactly the students have been doing based upon this requirement. Guys, again, if you want to improve your exam performance in APM, first and foremost, particularly if you want to improve your exam technique, you got to always improve your ability to read and understand the requirement fully and correctly. That is always the #1 skills that you will never want to compromise. If you fail to understand what the questions want, then you are unlikely to provide quality answers to gain the marks. So this is the kind of the practices. You're going to learn how to pick up the embedded tasks and start reading these carefully. Guys, if you read these embedded tasks carefully, they are asking for 2 tasks, which require 2 responses. How do I know there are 2 tasks? Particularly pay attention on the word and. Something and something. It means that the examining team are expecting 2 responses from the students. So make sure when you present and lay out your answer, I want to see these 2 headings, whereby you're going to place your answer in 2 separate headings clearly. Telling the marker, you asked me these 2 tasks, here are my answer for the 2 tasks. That is how to ensure your answers are marker friendly. Once we have seen the enhanced requirement, you got to start planning what exactly you have to write over that. However, and unfortunately, these 2 are the weaknesses that is covered by the marking team. When students attempt part 1, talking about performance dashboard, these are the problems which the marker found. Number one, the answer are barely acceptable. That goes back to an underdeveloped answer. The second weakness over here, that is a very common weakness, that students did not seem to answer what is being asked. And that is mainly because of you probably may not understand what the question asks correctly. You may actually misunderstood it. A good example, if you go back to the enhanced requirement on the first tree line, take a look at the first requirement, first task, which is to ask to evaluate the suitability of a consultant's proposed performance dashboard in achieving veterans' broad aims. They are asking to evaluate what exactly that you think these suggested performance dashboard that addressing the broad aim. Hey guys, catch the words carefully. I'm asking you, what do you think about this dashboard in addressing the aim? So when the verb is evaluate, you are supposed to tell me, I think this element of dashboards contains certain information that can address these particular items of the aim. When you say, yeah, I think this item of the dashboard information can address this aim, hey guys, this answer is underdeveloped until you tell me, why do you think so? And always remember, when you give this kind of answer to respond to the verb like evaluate, never give one side of the answer and say, yeah, I think these informations in the dashboard may address the aim because of blah, 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 blah. Guys, this answer is not complete yet. You are not showing the evaluation skills yet until you tell me the other side by continuing and say, however. Always remember, in APM, one thing that you should learn is to see any object in the universe from different angle, from different dimension. There is no such thing called a perfect solution. Whatever you see, whatever described by the question, there is always more than one dimensions of findings. When you tell me something good about it, that is only one side. Please also tell me what is the other side of it. What is the shortcoming? What is the limitation of it? That is exactly what I meant by the evaluation skills and assessment skill. And that perhaps would answer some of you who asked me these questions. The pro and cons is not simply just about listing out the pro, listing out the cons. It's not that way at all. It is about comparing, weighting the good and the bad at the same time. That's called evaluation. You shall see some of the recommendation on the keywords, magic word from the examiner report that you should learn. Let's take a look at what the students end up doing. The questions is asking you to evaluate the suitability of the dashboard, that addressing and reflecting the broad aim. But what did the students say? The students ended up talking about performance of the company, commenting on the KPI. That is exactly what is not right, obviously. So this is still a very common problem in APM that causes a failure in the exam. Students wrote a lot, but they just couldn't get the marks. So take a look at what examining teams say for improvement. You should always address and answer exactly what the questions want. And to do so, please go back and learn to improve your understanding ability on the requirements. That is still the most essential exam technique. Now, at the end, when the students end up talking about and commenting on the performance of the company, that is the consequences. The students hardly got any score, despite the fact they would have written a lot in the answer. Instead, what examining team have suggested, guys, this is the part that you don't get to see in the model answer. You only see this teaching plan, these advices from the examining team from this document, examiner report, especially if you look at the third sentence with the word for examples. Particularly, it comes to the part with in italic. One of veterans' aim is to grow, blah, 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 blah. That is exactly the way that you should write. Please take a look at the italic words. Until you come to the fourth line, do you see however? that you get to see however. That is exactly what I meant. Evaluate. While you are able to make use of this kind of keywords, you are not only just gaining the mark on the technical marks, but you also gain the marks on professional skills, on analysis and evaluation. So you are killing two birds with one stone when you build up these good writing skills. Where do you get to learn all these writing skills? It is examiner report in APM. That is the most crucial, most important and useful learning material. Now, if you are being taught by a tutor, try to just spend time with your tutor discussing about how do you leverage, how do you get benefit from the suggestion in the examiner report, and blend these kind of suggestions to become your habit of answering. Okay? Well, coming back to the professional skills marks, as I say, generally over the last couple of sittings, students somehow or rather will be able to demonstrate a fair bit of a good demonstrations on most of the professional skills mark, despite the fact there's still a lot of rooms for improvements. But guys, there is something that worth to draw your attention. The ability to score and your performance on professional skills marks are definitely positively correlated with your ability to score and your performance on technical marks. These two marks, these two skills are positively correlated. Now, looking into the rest of the comment on the professional skills, this is exactly what you should pick it up and start realizing. What are the skills that students are doing well? And you can take a look at this. Communication skills mark is the one that most students will be able to score well because of report format, as we say. Well, guys, that is exactly what we are doing by reading up the feedback from the examining team in the examiner report. Now, it's time for me to show you and take you through how exactly the suggestion, the finding on the examiner report will help me in improving my understanding ability on the requirement and then helping me to shape my answer planning. Well, guys, that is exactly one of the questions that you saw in the examiner report, and now that is exactly the screenshot on the first page over here. I am pretty sure that this is exactly the requirement on the left-hand side of the screen. You should have extracted, you should have opened up the requirement, and I think most of the tutors would have suggested you, at the same time, please open up the right-hand side, your word processor response, and please copy. That is the first step you should do. Copy the entire requirement into your words response and quickly tidy up. So when you copy over, it will look something just on the right-hand side. It will cram together. Please tidy up. If you realize this is all about report, quickly turn it into a report format, just like what you see underneath. Who is this report attention to? Who are you? Take a look at the party. Look at the identity I put. These are the default setting, particularly who are you? Performance management expert is always a default role that you are playing. Who is this report writing to? Please follow the instructions in the requirement. Followed by the date. Other than date, it will then come with the rest of the component that will appear on the next page. But guys, do you notice? On top of my answer, there is one part which I denote do not mark. What is this catered for? That is for you to copy paste. This is one of the habits I may suggest you to consider. This is not the only one, but that will be one of the habits. You may want to leave a section on the top, do not mark, to put your exhibit 1 of the content into here for the convenience, for the ease of referring. I notice a lot of students tends to just neglect and forget about what you see in exhibit 1 after reading exhibit 1, mainly because limitation of the space in your desktop screen. So in order to prevent from forgetting, I think it will be best to put it into your word processor. Later on, upon completing your answer, you may leave it there, not a problem. You already told the marker, do not mark, where your answer is at the bottom half. You can see the word answer indicate clearly. That is how I present my workspace. If you prefer to remove it on do not mark, by all means, go ahead. It's all yours. Now, let's take a look at the rest of the body. How does the rest of the body in the report looks like? After the date, we then have the title, read, and then it goes into introduction, which is what I mentioned a moment ago. After the introduction, that is where the rest of the requirements comes in. Part 1, performance dashboard. Part 2, benchmarking exercise. Part 3, cloud-based computing. And let's not forget about conclusion, if you think there's a need for you to write a conclusion. So once I get the whole requirement tidy up into this format, my next step, so step 1 done, step 2 done. My next step, if you take a look at my right-hand side on my word processor response, that is how I use do not mark. Now, I noticed many students did not really fully utilize the right-hand side screens of your practice platform. Usually, the right-hand side of the screen would list out the summary of what you expect to see in the exhibit. Do you realize that? Guys, take my advice. Keep an eye on the summary for the first exhibit. If you look at the background of the screen, the first exhibit is about company information. That isn't that. If you go further, this exhibit 1 is going to tell us about background, industry, information system, and aims of the company. They're going to tell you 4 things. You know what I'll do? I will pick up these words and put it into my do not mark. And why am I doing this? It's because when I turn on my exhibit 1, which is on my left-hand side of the screen, that is where I start reading. After reading, instead of highlighting, I do not highlight. Instead, I copy. I copy the paragraph, I paste it into the right heading so that I know exactly what each and every paragraph is all talking about. That allows me to always keep this in mind, to reflect it into my answer, to make sure my answer remains relevant and specifically linking to the scenario as always required and suggested. So take, for instance, the first paragraph on the first exhibit. Spend some time, guys. Take a look at what is in there. When I pick it and put it into my word processor, I notice the first paragraph talks about background. So I break it into every paragraph based on the full stop. That allows me to see clearer what exactly are the key points pertaining to the background of the company. It tells me about the value of the operation. It tells me about the history of the company. It tells me about the ownership structure. That is all found in the first 2 lines. The second line in the next paragraph tells me about the nature of businesses. Guys, do you realize how much information you're supposed to pick it up from this paragraph? To me, instead of highlighting, I would rather copy and paste while I'm reading. So that is how I'm doing both tasks simultaneously to save my time. I will do the same for the rest of the paragraph, that you can do it on your own back home. Next, if you take a look at the left-hand side of the screen now, I am showing you when I turn on the second exhibit. You may aware second exhibit and onwards are likely to relate specifically to each and every requirement. You can look at the title of exhibit 2, performance dashboard. It matches with requirement 1. Do you notice that? So what are you supposed to do when you turn on to the second onwards of the exhibit? You are supposed to do the 4th step. Well, the 4th step is obviously applicable for questions 1. Before you copy, before you extract information on exhibit 2 and put it into your word processor, try to complete the title of the report, try to write a paragraph on the introduction that is only found for questions 1. You may skip the step 4 if you are dealing with questions 2 and 3, where there is no format required. Well, once you have done this, step 5 tells you, take out the paragraph that contains all the embedded tasks and put it in to your response options. So copy the embedded task and tidy up, break it up into pieces to show it into your requirement part 1. After breaking up, it will look something like this. It will look something like this. Copy the task where someone is asking you to do something. That is where the task is all about. CEO required you. CEO is asking you. So that is exactly where you're supposed to pick it up and break it into this manner. So you have to respond to tasks over here. So first, evaluate the suitability of the dashboard by showing in what way they can address and connect to the broad aim of the firm. Second, the suitability of this dashboard in addressing the issue pertaining to this industry, the e-commerce system. So these are the two broad areas that you are supposed to answer. Guys, if you manage to structure your answer in this manner, naturally, you are able to secure and ensuring whatever you're going to write, it remains relevant. You are answering to these questions that is being asked. These are all the good habits. If you haven't done once, please do this. And let's not forget about the rest of the step to complete the whole of the answering of the questions. Once you have done all the copy and paste job, next step, number 6, is for you to read through the rest of the detail in Exhibit 1 together with the specific exhibit, combining the clue and think about how exactly this clue could be used to respond and address the requirement. Once you have picked up, I think this sentence, I think this word is going to be used to form an answer. Your step 7 is to generate a concrete idea. What exactly I want to talk about? What exactly I want to narrate about this point? Please bear it in mind, when you craft your answer plan, please bear in mind the professional skills. How do you get your professional skill in mind? The answer is please observe the verb. The verb that found in the requirement is directly indicating what kind of skills that you are supposed to demonstrate. Until you have everything ready, final step, that is where you produce your answer itself. So this is exactly to ensure whatever you do, it is within your plan. Guys, you like it or not, no matter how rushed the time is, step 1 to step 7 is the crucial part to determine the quality of a step 8 work. If step 1 to 7 is not done properly, it is unlikely your step 8 quality of work is of good quality. Okay? With all this kind of demonstration, let's try to bundle them together and let's see in simple what exactly are the advice that I have got for every one of you here. First and foremost, please make use of all the key resources from the ACCA, including the syllabus, ranging from syllabus, study hub, right up to technical articles, topic explainer videos. These are the things, no matter how many times you have attempted the exam paper or you're the first time taking the exam, please glance through all this with, I would say, whatever time you left behind, you're going to spend about 20% of the time on buckle up your technical knowledge. The other 80% of the time is for you to rehearse and keep practicing based upon all the recommendations. You may say, TK, you have mentioned a couple of suggestions. Would you be able to demonstrate to us what exactly you meant by that? The answer is yes, I will demonstrate to you. And the answer is you would first need to attempt the mock exam, the pre-September mock exam. Then after that, watch the debrief video. The debrief video would demonstrate how I would craft the answer right from the beginning to the end of it, based on the step I just demonstrated. So the mock exam debrief video is excellent. Please keep an eye on that. And please be reminded, always attempt the mock before watching the debrief. And then let's not forget about attempting as many questions as possible only from the practice platform. That is a must to do before the exam. And my suggestion is always start from the latest sitting and go backwards. And finally, let's not forget about your tutor support if you are attached and learning up with any of the approved learning partner. And of course, if you are also having some approved content providers, BPP or Kaplan or any others, by all means, make use of those. Guys, here is a poll for you to answer it quickly. Do you have the habit of practicing the questions on the platform? So please spend 10 seconds at most, respond to this. Ten seconds? Great, great. I can see some of the response coming in already. Great. So 5 more seconds to go. guys? Right. So there we go. Very good to see that. More than half of us are already having the habit of practicing the questions on the practice platform. I have got a lot of comments from students about practice platform. They say to me, TK, practice platform is kind of inconvenient for me to get it done on the questions. Guys, think of this carefully. Yes, I know, comparing to many other platforms like paper-based exam, to some of you who are not getting use of the platform, it is indeed inconvenience. Guys, that is the whole idea. You got to get used, you got to get adapted into this kind of inconveniences and making these inconveniences to become your convenience. Making sure that you are able to demonstrate your strength under this kind of inconvenience platform. If you're not getting yourself used to this kind of inconvenience platform, what do you expect to see? What do you expect to get on your exam, on the real exam performances? That is exactly what I meant by that. Well, that is towards the second half or towards the end of my advice for everyone. What exactly are the strategies that I will have it for you to take on and prevent from all the common pitfalls so that you can improve your exam performances? We are in APM. APM have tons of precious knowledge, not only for you to prepare for your exam, but it's very, very precious and beneficial for you to tell you how to do things properly, to how to get things done right. The following words, the following processes is exactly what I learned. I'm not sure about you, but this is what I learned from ABM, Activity-Based Management. If you read up the article on ABM, the first thing you're going to do is to have a strategic mindset of ABM to tell you what is the right things to do. Once you have got the idea, then when you want to implement, when you want to get things done, please do it right. Then only that will lead you to a pass in the exam, not only for APM, but all exam papers. That's why I tell you, APM is an influence exam paper. It is not only helping you to pass APM, it helps and influences you in doing everything in life. Well, that is a bit of my detailed advices for you. What do I mean by do the right things? Take a look at the 3 points. Listen and take the advice from the expert team. First and foremost, examining team. Where do you get the advice from? Examiner's report. That is why we as a tutor are putting so much of time in reading and understand examiner's report. And of course, getting advices from expert tutor and your own tutor will be a great idea. So these are all the right things you're going to do. Don't do it blindly. Do not do things without listening from what people who are experienced enough are telling you about. Once you have got all the good advices, the rest of the thing is all over to you guys. You're going to do it right by practicing the questions under the time constraint. My suggestions for you, particularly if you have a problem in doing things within time constraint, try to start constraining yourself by completing one question within the time range. Until you manage to confine yourself, do the work. When I say do the work, it is not about completing the answer, but it's about gaining 50% of the mark in that question within the time. When you can do it for one question, you expand into 2 questions. Until the end, before the final exam, you do it on the full run. Complete into 3 questions as a full mark. That is how you practice and groom your time management. Let's not forget about your exercises, that you have to do it mentally and physically. Make sure you are physically and mentally tough for facing the 3 hours challenges of concentrations required. And obviously, exam tips for you to take note: always practice limiting factor decision mindset, meaning to say, how do you make sure every minute you spend, your job is to earn as many marks as you can? Think through that. What are you supposed to do? It all depends. Which are the work that allow you to earn most marks for every minute of the work spent? Here are the golden rules for you guys. Writing is always able to provide you more marks for every minute you spend comparing to computing. Always bear this in mind. And let's not forget about practicing APM, which I already said. And again, last but not least, do not just ignore about your what-if analysis and your what-if planning, particularly when time managements go bust. You need to have a plan B. Your plan B is very much depending on how rational you are during the exam. So these are the kind of plans that you need to have in order to help you to prepare for the unprepared situation. Okay? Well, here come the last pool questions for you. Guys, have you got a clue? When will you get the pre-September mock exam questions? And when do you get to access to the debrief video? Please respond in the pool. You have got any clue? Just give it a try. Last 5 seconds. Any clue? 3 seconds? 2 seconds. Great. Wow, very close pool. The correct answer is 12 August, which is yesterday. You already have got the access to the mock exams yesterday, and you'll be getting to the access of the debrief video in the next couple of days down the road. Remember, you can always see the full demonstration on the exam technique, which I've mentioned just now and demonstrate to you in the mock exam paper. Okay? Well, that's the end of my sharing, and we still have a couple of minutes left for taking on some questions. Now, at the very beginning, I see some of you already have asked me the questions talking about, now, I have experienced failure before, particularly my failure is close to passing, just that at this point of time, I have got no clue what is the best thing to do. My suggestions for you, okay? Whatever days that you have now, if you're working, if you have families, you're going to set aside this portion. Now, this is exactly how you use your balanced scorecard mindset to manage your job now, okay? You cut things into 4 pieces, yeah? One piece is the time for you to spend for your family and your work over that. So 1 piece already. The other piece, and of course the other 3 pieces at this critical moment is supposed to be for yourself, okay? So the other 3 pieces, number 1, you have to spend some time to buckle up your technical knowledge. You like it or not, you need to really strengthen your technical knowledge itself, okay? So what you have to do on the technical knowledge, read through the technical articles, watch the topic explainer video. At this point of time, you should not spend too much of time in Study Hub, if you ask me. I would rather you spend time on technical articles and watching the topic explainer video. That will give you a quick snapshot and a recap of technical knowledge that is indeed enough to prepare for your exam. So that is another block already. The other block for you, it is to practice the questions. However, let me remind you, do not practice the questions in such a way like, I have done these questions many times already. I'm going to do it again. Unconsciously, you are going to just copy what you did in the past into the next attempt of the same questions. Unconsciously, you are going to inherit your old habits, which is not working, less workable. You're going to inherit all the inefficiencies. You're going to inherit all the bad habits to you. That is not the way, guys. When I say when you practice the questions, you need to drop away whatever you remember. Try to tackle the question based upon the habit that I have demonstrated from the examiner report and some of the suggestions that I will show to you in the debrief video. Try to pick up some new habit. I always say this to students. When you give a change to yourself, when you are trying to do things in a different way, you will always see a chance. You will always have a probability of showing improvement. But if everything you're doing is just repeating what you're doing in the past, you're going nowhere, because this is an incremental budgeting mindset. I'm telling you, adopt a zero-based budgeting mindset if you want to get things done properly. Okay? I have some of the questions over here. I'm trying to consolidate the questions together. All right. I have one of it that say, do you get marked on your answer planning? The answer is no. Your mark is only awarded on the body of your answer. Your answer planning is not being graded at all. Okay, so you can always put the answer planning for your own eye, for your own view. Remember, it is not marked at all. Please remember on this. Okay, let's see what do we have else. Right. How much do we need to rope to learn the model? It is some things that we can got from the questions. In APM, yes, the technical knowledge are quite a lot. The models are quite a lot. I would suggest you like it or not, you cannot afford to take the risk and say, let's not learn about the model. Let's pray hard the model is not being tested. That isn't the way. I would suggest you learn up all the models, whether or not the odds of appearing is high or low, you at least have to cover yourself up. So that's why I say, make sure you spend one of the quadrant of your time in buckling up your technical knowledge. Last but not least, Mr. Chan, what is the last quadrant that you mentioned? My suggestions for you. The last quadrant is me time. You need to stay a moment of silence. Keep imagining what are you going to do during the exam. You need to do a lot of mental rehearsal. That is exactly what we have. Okay, maybe I can only take on the last questions before I pass over to Hazel. Are we allowed to utilize the formula in Excel for the example of MIRR? Yes, you can. You can. If the questions is to ask for MIRR, you are allowed to use it, provided you know how to use the stats that is found in the formula sheet as the guidance, or you can remember the step, by all means, go ahead, not a problem at all. Okay, so will you be penalized if you copy the embedded requirements into your answer? No, you are not going to be penalized, but you should try to modify the embedded requirement, turn it into the heading like what I showed a moment ago. Okay, so I think that this is all the time that we have, and I have tried to answer as many questions as I could already. And I wish all of you all the best in the upcoming examination. Hazel, over to you.
Thank you. So as TK said, we do need to bring things to a close. I hope we found today's live session very useful. There's a couple of things I'd like to remind you about just before we go. So there are some important resources updated in the resource section of the webinar, and there are links to the PDF slides from today. There's the pre-September 2024 mock and debrief support, the latest examiner report, technical articles and topic explainers, and you can also get a link through to the ACCA Study Hub and the Student Study Resources YouTube channel. When talking about the YouTube channel, just to say, in addition, there's support that's been created by ACCA to support you with APM. So there's an on-demand APM webinar that is advancing beyond PM, and the link has just been added to the attendee chat now. In this video, the expert tutor has shared practical guidance on how to step up from performance management and provided insights into the nature of the tasks, their structure, and correct usage of tools when answering APM questions. He's also showcased a few examples to help you write answers. As I said, it is on the YouTube channel. When you're on there, don't forget to subscribe, and then you'll be the first to know when we add new resources. To everyone that's registered for this webinar, you will be getting an email of the details of how to listen to it again. So thank you all for joining today. Finally, I'd like to thank Tze for extending his support, and also to the team in the background that have helped support deliver this session. Wishing you all the best for your exams. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.